Everyone tells you world-class athletes are talented, but they were born with something you don't have. And that's really convenient to think that because it just lets everyone off the hook and it's an easy way out. Coaches don't have to get better, parents don't have to question the system, and the kid who doesn't make it just gets told it wasn't meant to be. But that's not what's actually going on. What's actually going on is a volume game that starts at 6 years old. And if you didn't start at 6 in the right country, in the right system, people will tell you you're done and you can't make it. You'll never close that gap. And they're really just half right, but they're also half completely wrong. And I know this because I lived it. See, I left home at 16 to play professional football in Europe, in Macedonia, in England, etc. And what I didn't understand at the time, what nobody explained to me, is that the guys I was competing against had been inside pressured scenario specific football since they were 6 or 7 years old. So by the time they were 18, they've already received the ball with a centre back stepping into them maybe 3,000 times, for example. They don't think about it anymore. The nervous system just really knows what's going to happen before it even happens. The ball's coming, they already know what's behind them, and their body has already decided what to do before the ball even arrives. And that's not a talent game, that's volume. 12 years of scenario-specific volume in the right environments. And so when I showed up at 18 with 9 months in the system, I had the technique. My first touch in training was fine, but in games it fell apart, and I couldn't work out why. In training you have time. You can look, set your body, execute. The game compresses all of that. And in that compression, the kid from the academy is recalling from memory. I was still processing in real time. Same scenario, completely different speed of execution. And that gap, that's not a talent gap. That's a pattern recognition gap. He's seen this 3,000 times. I've only seen it 50 times. His nervous system has already automated that whole play. Mine was still trying to figure it out consciously. And at that level, conscious processing is way too slow. Things occur on a scale of milliseconds. Now here's where it gets interesting, because the question everyone asks is, well, if you missed those 12 years, is the gap actually closable then? Or did you just accept and move on? Most people accept it. Most coaches accept it. They say he doesn't have the footballing brain. He's not a natural. He hasn't peaked. He needs more work. And that's where they're completely wrong. Every development program on earth actually fails because they throw the player into full training, full matches and just say, adapt, get used to it. And that sounds reasonable until you actually do the maths on it. In a 90-minute match, how many times does a specific scenario that's breaking you actually show up? Maybe 4 or 5 times. That's 4 or 5 reps in 90 minutes. You can't build a nervous system adaptation off only 4 reps. It's not enough stimulus. The dose is way too low. And so the kid plays a full season, 40 matches, and is only able to only get 200 reps of that one scenario. 200 reps across an entire year. The academy kid already had that in a month when he was 8 years old. Here's the thing. What if you don't play the match? What if you strip the game down? You take that one scenario, receiving between the lines with the defender stepping in, and you engineer a constrained environment where it repeats every 15 seconds instead of every 8 minutes, and actually measuring the scenario. Now you get 200 reps in a single session. One session. What the match gives you in a year, you can get in an hour if you design it right. And this is what I mean by you can't out-volume the system, but you can outsmart it. You can't compress 12 years of general exposure, but you can isolate the specific thing that's failing and dose it at a frequency that forces adaptation. This is exactly what I do with sprint speed. I don't tell my athletes to just go run more and hope they get faster. That really doesn't work. What I do is block it out. Ground contact time, that's one block. I isolate it, I measure it, I dose it. Projection angle, different block. Force application through the hip, different kind of block. Each one gets its own single measurement, its own target and its own protocol. And so the athlete isn't just sprinting and hoping something improves. They know exactly which block is the bottleneck, right? Exactly what the number is and exactly what it needs to be. And when it shifts, we move to the next block. That's precision. That's how you fast track specific things. And the football application is identical, has to be surgical. You identify which part of the perceive, decide and execute chain is the limiting factor. Is it perceptual? They don't see it. Is it decisional? They see it but they choose the wrong decision. Or is it technical? They know what to do but they can't execute it at speed. 3 completely different problems, 3 completely different interventions needed. Most academies treat all of that as one thing called intelligence and hope matches fix it. That's what turns a sprinter to just play more football and hoping their ground contact gets shorter. The stimulus is way too diluted. You have to isolate the variable. Think surgically. You don't start the hardest variation and hope. And I think people get confused here because they look at the football leagues like they're levels, right? Like the Premier League is level 10 and the Australian League is level 4. And it's just a ladder you climb. But that's not how it really works. Different leagues aren't different levels of the same sport. They're closer actually to different sports entirely. And that's how you should be looking at it. Think of it like driving a car. You can be a great driver in China or Vietnam, for example. I'm using that example because I've been there. And the actual traffic is pretty chaotic. You've driven there your whole life. You know the traffic, the timing, the flow, the chaos of it all. You're technically very good, right, in steering and maneuvering the car you're driving. Now put that same driver in Australia, for example. Same skill driving, same car, but everything about the environment is different. The whole speed of the element is different. The spacing is different. The rules, the expectations, how other drivers behave around you, all that is different. And so even though you can drive, you can't drive here. Not yet. Not because you lack the ability and the foundation, because your nervous system hasn't adapted to the scenario, specifically to the environment. And the thing people miss is that the car doesn't really matter. Your technique doesn't matter. What matters is the time it takes to adapt to the new environment and the speed at which things are occurring around you. That's the constraint, time in the environment. And if time is the constraint, then time is what you have to actually measure in the specific scenario. So when a player moves from the A-League to the Bundesliga, the question isn't, can you play football? Of course he can play football, or she can play football. The question is, how fast can his nervous system adapt to the scenarios that are specific to that environment? The speed of the press, the closing speed of the defenders, the tempo of build-up play, all different, all actually measurable, right? And if you're not measuring adaptation, you're just hoping it happens before the club runs out of patience. And trust me, these clubs don't have patience. And that's the same thing whether you're talking about a footballer moving leagues, a sprinter switching from 60 meters to 100 meters, or a kid moving from park football to organized 11-a-side. The environment changes, the scenarios change, the adaptation is a time constraint problem. And the only way to compress a time problem is to identify exactly what needs adapting and measure whether it's shifting or not, using time as the measurement. And the measurement piece is what makes all of this real. You think yourself or the player is getting better. You hope they're getting better, but you don't actually know. With measurement, decision speed and execution time from receive to release, ground contact, and actual force output on an athletic scale, you can see the adaptation happening week by week. You can see which block is moving and which one is actually stuck. And when something stalls, you don't just do more. You go back into the subcategory and ask, what's actually failing? And so here's what most people completely miss. This isn't just for the kid who's behind. This applies to every single athlete at every single level, including the ones already in the system, including the ones everyone thinks have already made it. Because even academy kids plateau. Even the kid at Barcelona that everyone speaks about hits a point where general training starts producing the gains needed to go to the world-class level. And when that happens, the coach just says he's peaked. He doesn't have the next level, but they haven't singled that specific limiting factor. They haven't gone into the specifics and asked which scenario, which part of the chain, which mechanical quality is the actual ceiling. They just haven't really done that. They're still relying on more volume because volume works for the first 12 years. But volume has a shelf life, and when it expires, precision is the only thing that keeps the curve moving. And almost nobody is doing the precision aspect because almost nobody is thinking about it this single way, with no ego attached, right? And that's why I'm building SpeedForm, a system that can identify the blocks, measure them through a camera, and tell exactly what to target next. Not because AI is smarter than a world-class coach. It's not, because this process shouldn't live in one person's head. It should be available to every single athlete on the world, every single one. If you've been told the gap is too big, it's not. The gap is real, but it's closable. Not through volume, through surgical precision and knowing what to work on and what's actually limited. I left home at 16 and nobody built me this protocol. Nobody even thought about it. I had to live it and then spend 15 years reverse engineering why it didn't work. You don't have to wait that long. If this changed how you think about development, subscribe. I'm breaking down the nervous system framework behind speed, football, and human movement every single day, hopefully, on this channel. So make sure to like and subscribe and see you soon.